What's going on, people? Welcome to episode 2 of the Wildman Origins. Now, if you haven't, please go watch part 1 before you watch this in order to gain context going into this video. Now, I just want to state, brothers and sisters, there's no time frame for when I'm going to release these videos. These videos could be released within a week of each other, months, 6 months, what have you. It does take a long time to gather the information, edit it, and then put it out. And keep in mind, brothers, I do have a real life to live, and sometimes real life gets in the way of video production. Now, this is not really going to apply to all of you that are happen to be watching this when I edit it into one long video. This mainly applies to the people who are watching as I release multiple parts. So with that being said, brothers, by the way, yes, the photo that you currently see on your screen, brothers, is actually a real photo, okay? This is what the wild man looks like. Now, this man was known, or boy was known as Jojo, the dog-faced boy. Now, we're going to touch on him later down into this series. But I just want to give this as a starter to show you that whenever you see the medieval depictions of the wild people, the wild men, it's not an exaggeration. But like I said, brothers, please go watch part 1 if you haven't. For those of you who are watching this as these videos get released. As usual, like the video, subscribe, comment, all of that helps this channel out. Yeah, let's just get straight into it. Episode 2 of the Wildman Origins. Okay, so now, brothers, continuing off from where we left off from. Now we're going to get Alexander in the book of Daniel being showcased and prophesied. So now we're in Daniel 8 and 1, the vision of the ram and the goat. So in the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Edom. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. So then I lifted up mine eyes, and I saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. Now, brothers, this ram with the 2 horns, it's talking about the Persians and the Medes. Now, when it states, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, that higher horn, it's talking about the Persians, because the Persians waxed stronger out of the 2. Let's keep reading. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Now, when the scriptures talks about beast, rivers, and mountains, a lot of that is just an allegory, or it's talking about nations of people. So neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Now, brothers, this is talking about the he-goat, the notable horn. This is talking about Alexander the Macedonian. Let's read on. And he came up to the ram that had the 2 horns. So basically, now this is Alexander coming up to the Persians and the Medes, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with choler or color. Now basically, brothers, that means fury, anger, and disdain. So against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. So now this is Alexander taking over basically the Persians and the Medes. As I said, that those 2 horns being broken. and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stampled upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hands. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great and was very strong. That great horn was broken. Now, brothers, when it talks about the great horn being broken, this is Alexander passing away. And for it came up 4 notable ones towards the 4 winds of heaven. So, brothers, after Alexander passed away, when it talks about the 4 winds is in representation of Alexander's 4 generals. His 4 generals being Lysimachus, Seleucid, Ptolemy, and Cassander. So now, brothers, we're going to jump down, and it gives you the interpretation of the vision. So now, interpretation of the vision. And it came to pass, when I, even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So now, brothers, this is the angel Gabriel giving the interpretation to Daniel. So we're going to jump down. So the ram's identity. The ram which thou sawest, having 2 horns, are the kings, brothers, of Media and Persia. So one more time, those 2 horns are the Persians and Medes. So the goat. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Brothers, the king of Grecia, brothers, this is talking about Alexander the Macedonian. Okay, so now, brothers, jump into the Apocrypha. Now this is that vision now coming, being fulfilled. So after that, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came from the land of Kittim, had defeated King Darius of the Persians and Medes. He succeeded him as king. He fought many battles, conquered strongholds, and slaughtered the kings of the earth. He had advanced to the ends of the earth and plundered many nations. And when the earth became... One second. And when the earth became quite before him, he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. He gathered a very strong army and ruled over countries, nations, and princes, and they paid him tribute. And here it is being fulfilled in the scriptures of Alexander taking over the Persians. Now let's get it one more time in secular history. So a summary of how Alexander took over Persia. So in 344 BCE, Alexander the Great began his campaign to conquer the Persian Empire, one of the most powerful empires of the time. He led his army across the Hellespont into Asia Minor, defeating the Persian forces of the Battle of Granicus. A year later, he faced the Persian king Darius. We just read that in the Apocrypha, brothers. Darius III of the Battle of Issus, where Alexander won a major victory and captured Darius's family. Now, brothers, just to bring it home even further. So now we're back in the Josephus, and I took a screenshot and I highlighted the part where it showcases Alexander in the book of Daniel. But just to quickly recap, now Alexander is in Jerusalem, and him and the high priest are offering sacrifice unto the Most High. So, and when the book of Daniel was shown to him, so now, brothers, this is the high priest, showing showing Alexander the Macedonian the book of Daniel. So, and when the book of Daniel was shown to him, that being Alexander, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, he supposed that himself was the person intended. So one more time, brothers, here you have Alexander being showcased by the high priest that he was prophesied in the book of Daniel. So one more time, linking actual history with the scriptures, because they're one in the same. Now, brothers, now we're going to get back to Alexander's 4 generals. So let me go back. Let me find it. Bear with me 1 second. Where is it? So here it is. So Daniel 8 and 8. So therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of the earth. So brothers, like I mentioned, this is Alexander passing away, and then his 4 generals took over. Let's get it in the being fulfilled in the Apocrypha. So after this, he fell sick. So this talk about Alexander. After this, he fell sick and perceived that he was dying. So he summoned his most honored officers, who had been brought up with him from youth, and divided his kingdom among them while he was still alive. After that, Alexander had reigned 12 years, and he died. Then his officers began to rule, each in his own place. They all put crowns after his death, and so did their descendants after them for many years, and they caused many evils on the earth. So here is Daniel 8 and 8 being fulfilled. Now, brothers, like I said, his 4 generals, the 4 winds, were Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucid, and Ptolemy. Now, Ptolemy, he had the territory of in southern part of Egypt. Seleucid had Syria. Lysimachus had Thrace, and Cassander had the western part of Macedonia. And our people's problems mainly came, this is where our people's problems came after Alexander passed away, mainly through Ptolemy and the Seleucid line. Okay, so now that we've just got done looking at Alexander and the Persians, now we're going to take a look what those original Persians, Medes, Elamites, what have you, originally looked like. Now, as you can see from the screen, brothers, this is what they originally looked like, and it doesn't really match with the people that they show today. Now, we're going to get more of these images, but let's touch on that real quick. Okay, so now, brothers, sisters, this is what modern Persian people look like. These are the type of people that they push to the forefront. Now, just complexion-wise, in and of itself, it doesn't match with the artifacts. So let me just bring one up. So as you can see here, and don't worry, I'm going to show more of these. So let's go back. So these are modern Persian people, and you're going to notice this same type of look. So here are some modern day Egyptians, one more time with that same distinct look. Here are some Tunisian people with that same look. Here are some Palestinian people, and this is just scratching the surface. So the question is, where does this modern day Middle Easternish look actually come from? The reason why they look like this today, it comes from a lot of the different Turkic tribes that invaded said regions, especially when it comes to the Ottoman Turks. These people are not the original people of said land masses. Okay, so now brothers, touching on the Palestinians, the term Palestine or Palestinian comes from the term Philistine. Now Philistine comes from the term Philistim. Now who is Philistim? Philistim is one of the descendants of the offshoots of the sons of Ham. Now who is Ham? Ham is one of the sons of Noah. Now they say that Ham, this is where all the dark races of people come from, which is not true. Because brothers, sisters, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, the three sons of Noah, were all men of color. But this is how they inject their pseudoscience into the scriptures. Now, taking a look at the image that you see on your screen, this is a false representation of Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Now, as you can see, Shem will be a mixture of like modern day Middle Eastern people and Caucasians. Ham will be all the dark races, and Japheth will be purely white people. One more time, brothers, this is a false representation of Ham, Shem, and Japheth. But let's just say that all dark races of people, all black people do come from Ham, which is not true, but let's give them that. Even if they say that all dark races of people come from Ham, they're still going to hit themselves in the foot. Okay, so now we're in the scriptures, and we're going to look at the descendants of the sons of Ham. Keep in mind, brothers, this is where they say that all dark races of people come from. So now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, and Ham. We're going to specifically skip down to Ham. So, and the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, by the way, that's where you get the Egyptians. I'm going to touch on that in a bit. And Put and Canaan, and the sons of Cush, Sheba. You get the point. So, jumping down to the point. So, jumping down. So, and Pathrazim and Casluhim, out of who came Philistim. Brothers, this is where you get the term Palestinian from. This is where the Philistines come from. So, if they say that all dark races of people come from Ham, and once again, one of the offshoots of the descendants of the sons of Ham is Philistim, why do they look like this today then? In other terms, brothers, putting it modernly, the Palestinians should be a quote-unquote black African people. Okay, so now here's ChatGPT. Now I'll put in, does the term Palestinian come from the term Philistines? So peep this. Yes, the term Palestinian is etymologically related to the term Philistine, but the connection is more historical and geographical than ethnic or cultural. So the word Philistine, brothers, comes from the Hebrew Philistim. We just read that in the scriptures, referring to the ancient people who lived along the southern coast of Canaan, modern-day Gaza. So now we're going to get the punchline. Actually, we can read it. So it says Palestinia at the bottom. So Palestinia is the Latinized form of Philistia, the land of the Philistines. So this is the punchline. So modern Palestinian identity, I'm reading it slow, modern Palestinians, Arab, Muslim, Christians, and others are not, and I repeat, are not ethnically or genetically related to the ancient Philistines. Let's run that back. Modern Palestinians are not ethnically or genetically related to the ancient Philistines. Why? Because they're not the original people of that landmass. And like I said, the ancient Philistines are a quote unquote black African people. Okay, so now we're going to touch on the Egyptians. Now, brothers, sisters, keep in the back of your mind, one more time, they say that all dark races of people come from the line of Ham, as shown here. So keep that in the back of your mind. So once again, we're going to look at the sons of Ham, and we're going to pick out a particular son. So we're going to jump down. So, and the sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim, and Put and Canaan. Now we're going to highlight Mizraim. So Egypt, land of the cups, a country at the northeastern section of Africa, adjacent to Palestine, and through which the Nile flows. Egyptian equals double straits. So peep this. The inhabitants, brothers, or natives of Egypt, I'm gonna run that back. The inhabitants or natives of Egypt, basically the original people of that landmass. So one more time, brothers, they say that all dark races of people come from Ham. One of his sons is Mizraim. So then I have to ask the question one more time. Why do they look like this today? In other words, the Egyptians, the people of ancient Kemet, they should be, quote unquote, using modern day terminology, a black African people, Hamitic people, yet they look like this. Of course, my point is redundant by now, but they're not the original people of that landmass. Okay, so now, brothers, we're going to get a summary from ChatGPT. So I typed in, is Mizraim ancient Egypt? So it states, yes, Mizraim is the Hebrew and Aramaic name for ancient Egypt, and it also refers to the mythical ancestor of the Egyptians. Brothers, there's nothing mythical about it. Mizraim was a real person that lived. And keep in mind, I am going off what they state, okay? I know I keep mentioning it over and over again, brothers, but this is why I'm making a point of it. They say that all dark races of people come from Ham. This is one of his sons. So one more time, the people of ancient Kemet should be a black African people by default. Well, let's carry on. So dual meaning of Mizraim. So the land of Egypt. In the Hebrew Bible and other Semitic text, or Shemitic text as it should be, there's no Sem, it's Shemitic. The man's name was Shem. Mizraim refers to Egypt itself. The word employs a dual ending, like symbolizing the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt. So Mizraim, son of Ham. Biblically, Mizraim is one of Ham's sons, making him a grandson of Noah. Gen 10:6 lists him, we just read that, as the progenitor of Egypt. One more time, brothers, list him as the progenitor of Egypt and his descendants: Lodim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrazim, Casluhim, and Cathrohim are portrayed as nations or tribes tied to the Egypt region. So jumping down. So summary. Mizraim equals Egypt, brothers. The name commonly denotes the ancient civilization and land in biblical text. So Mizraim equals ancestral figure. In Genesis, Mizraim is Ham's son. Biblically, tradition personifies the name's region or origin, sorry. So jumping down. So in short, yes, Mizraim is the biblical Hebrew word for ancient Egypt, and also the name of its legendary patriarch. One more time, brothers. The name of its legendary patriarch. So one more time, brothers. The people of ancient Kemet, we all know this by now, are a so-called black African people, Hamitic nation from the line of Ham. And one more time, brothers. Let me go back to the image. Saying that all dark races of people come from Ham, you cannot say that and then deny that the people of ancient Egypt were a black African people. So they have to make up their mind which lie they want to go with. But my point's been made. Okay, so I'm going to quickly touch on Nimrod and bring out a point also. It's not going to be long. But basically, brothers, just going back to Egypt, the reason why they can't let go of Egypt and admit that the people of ancient Kemet were a dark race of people, a Hamitic nation, a black African people, quote unquote, it's because if they admit that, it's going to have a triple-fold trickle-down effect. For example, if you admit that the people of ancient Kemet were a dark race of people, by default, you have to admit that the Israelites, the holy people of the Bible, are also a dark race of people, because the Israelites and the Egyptians, they intermingled with each other through the annals of history. For example, Moses himself was raised as an Egyptian in Pharaoh's house. When the patriarch Jacob passed away and the Israelites were mourning his death, the neighboring tribes thought it was the Egyptians that were mourning and it was the Israelites. The Apostle Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian and he corrected him and said that he was an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. So one more time, you have to admit by default that the Israelites are also a dark race of people. Whatever complexion the ancient Egyptians were is what the complexion of the holy people of the Bible are going to be. Another reason why they can't let go of Egypt, brothers, is because they can't give credit to a dark nation of people being the pioneers of civilization, especially civilizations that are still viewed highly today. Okay, so now quickly touching on Nimrod. Who is Nimrod? Nimrod, brothers, was one of the grandsons of Ham. One more time, who they say all dark races of people come from. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting Nimrod is because Nimrod is credited with bringing a lot of civilization after the flood, building cities, civilizations, and taming animals, what have you. Don't get it twisted. I'm not venerating Nimrod, because for those of us who read the scriptures, we know Nimrod was wicked as hell. But I'm making a point. So Nimrod equals rebellion. Like I said, he was wicked as hell. Or the valiant. So Nimrod, the son of Cush, and grandson of Ham, and great-grandson of Noah, a mighty hunter, he established an empire in the area of Babylon and Assyria. So we go here. So in the Bible, Nimrod is portrayed as a powerful hunter and the founder of several Mesopotamian cities, including Babylon, Erech, and Akkad. He's also associated with the building of Nineveh and other cities. Like I said, he's credited with building cities, taming animals, what have you. But look how they got Nimrod depicted. They got Nimrod depicted right here as a straight up Caucasian. Now, this is why I make the link with Egypt, because like I said, brothers, they cannot give credit to a dark race of people being the pioneers or starters of civilization, especially civilizations. One second. Yeah, especially civilizations that are still viewed highly today. So we just go here, brothers. Look how they got Nimrod depicted in all of these images. Nimrod should be a so-called black African man, using modern day terminology. Yet they got him here depicted here as a straight up white man. They got him depicted in this one as a modern day Middle Eastern person. All of these fake images. And these are the type of images that you see of all ancient civilizations, these false images. Oh, we got one here. Okay, so here's one image of a more accurate depiction of the complexion of Nimrod. See, brothers, all these false representations. One more time, and I'll keep saying it. He is the grandson of Ham, who they say all dark races of people come from. So why does he look like this? He should be a dark-skinned man. So anyways, brothers, I also typed in David and Goliath, and of course, the same thing. Now, brothers, David and Goliath were both men of color. Goliath was Hamitic from the line of the Philistines, okay? And David was Shemitic from the Holy Seed line. And Goliath would have been a very dark-skinned man. And David would have been a mid-brown to dark brown with a reddish undertone, ruddyish tone to him. Basically, both men of color, different dark races of people, yet they got them both depicted like this. And one more time, brothers, these are the false images that you see of history in general. So this is what I say when I tell you that certain ancient civilizations were a dark race of people, when I tell you that certain historical figures were men of color or women of color, it's hard to believe because these are all the type of false representations that you've seen all of your life. And this is why the nations get mad when it's revealed that like an ancient civilization or historical figure was a man or woman of color. Because like I said, they've been taught that when it comes to dark races of people, they can't really start a civilization, and they had to be taught. You know, they're tribal and they fight amongst each other with spears. We've all heard the stories, we've all heard them. Okay, so in conclusion, my main point is stating the people that you see in these land masses are not the original people of those land masses. What they do, they take the modern day inhabitants and they apply them to all the ancient history of the landmass that they currently reside in. But with that being said, brothers, it doesn't mean that there's no indigenous roots within these groups of people, because the term Arab in and of itself means mingled seed. So for those original people who didn't get displaced, the invaders mixed in with the original inhabitants. So you are going to get, you know, you are going to get Hamitic, Shemitic in there. Okay, you're going to get Ishmael in there. But my main point, what I wanted to bring out, is we cannot deny the Turkic influence on these people, and as to why they have this modern day look, this type of look here. Okay, brothers, as you can see, they're all similar because they're all of familiar stock. Oh, and before we get to the images, going over Ham, Shem, and Japheth one more time. This is a false representation of Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Ham, Shem, and Japheth were all men of color. This is them injecting their pseudoscience into the scriptures. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some artifacts of how the ancient Persians depicted themselves. So first up, brothers and sisters, this is a Persian glazed frieze from the palace of Darius I in Susa. And as you can see, it's depicting a Persian soldier. Okay, so now, brothers, here's a wall glazed tiles depicting Persian soldiers. So here's another Persian soldier or archer. Same thing. Pay attention to their complexion. Okay, so brothers, so here are some Persians located in the southwest of Iran, in the lower Zagros mountains. So here's another. Oh yeah, and brothers, sisters, don't forget to screenshot and save these images that I'm showing, so you have a personal file. Here are some more, brothers. So here is the Achaemenid Sphinx. Oh yeah, brothers, I want to tackle the term or the narrative of sub-Saharan African and Nubian. What they tend to do, they take the different dark races of people on the earth and they categorize them as sub-Saharan African and Nubian only, and they do this to strip dark races of people of history. And I know you brothers and sisters have heard these narratives before. So they will say stuff like, you see these artifacts that I just showed? They will say, oh, these are not black African. Black people are trying to steal history again. First and foremost, who said they were black African? Or they will say they don't have quote unquote black African features. Now, what do they mean by this? They mean, the wider nose and the fuller lips, as if all dark races of people have to have those features. And another thing, brothers, going back to the Nubian. Now, when it comes to the Nubians, you're going to see a lot of the time when you see hieroglyphs or frescoes, the Nubians are always going to be like depicted with jet black skin. It's because the Nubians are some of the darkest people on the earth. Now, with that being said, they use that as a narrative to place all dark races of people in. So when you see artifacts that don't have jet black skin, they try to say it's not people of color. So let me just go back to so things like this. So brothers, look at this here. So they will sit there and try to tell you that this is not depicting people of color. They may say this is depicting tanned Middle Eastern people at best. But because they don't have jet black skin, it's not depicting people of color. These are the type of semantics they're going to run on you. So you see all of these type of hieroglyphs and artifacts here. As I said, people of color come in variant shades of brown, all the way from light skin to mid brown to dark brown. So, brothers, in other words, don't let them pigeonhole you into the category of sub-Saharan African and Nubian only. Always remember, the original man was melanated. The original people of the earth are going to be dark-skinned, different dark races of people, which means they're going to come in all shapes, sizes, and phenotypes. So guys, this is what I'm talking about when you hear me state different dark races of people, because we're all not the same. And as you can see from the subheading, it states, what is black? Because black is not a race. People of color, of all the different dark nations of people, are different shades of brown. They're not actually black. And they come in all forms, shapes, and phenotypes and sizes, hair texture, what have you. And this is what the ancient world looked like. You told people apart. If everybody was quote unquote black, quote unquote, you told people apart by their laws, their customs, their religion, their way of life, their culture, their dress code, the deity that they worship, what have you. And this is why, brothers, any landmass that you go to, when you dig up artifacts, relics, sculptures, monuments, statues, what have you, it's always going to showcase a quote unquote black person, because the original people of the earth are melanated like the Most High created man, from the soil, from the dirt of the ground. The deeper you go into the soil, the variant shades of brown it is. Black is not one sovereign race of people. Okay, so just showing the artifacts one more time, brothers and sisters. One more time, reminder, don't forget to save and screenshot all of the images that I show. Okay, so now, brothers, we're going to briefly touch on the ancestral dwelling place of the wild people, the wild men, Esau, Edom, Idumea, whatever phrase you want to use to describe them, it's all the same people. Now, brothers, sisters, the ancient dwelling place was known as a place called Mount Seir, which is located modern southeast of Jordan, or southeast Jordan. And brothers, this is a mountainous region. And as you can see, this is the type of places they love to dwell. Like I said, brothers, throughout this entire series, you're going to come to find out Edom and the wild men match 1-to-1. And now, just like the scripture states also, those that dwelleth in the clefts of the rocks, who build their habitation on high. You know, we're going to go over all of those verses as well throughout this series. I said, brothers, they built into them caves, the mountains. Now, brothers, you had a people known as the Horites that were actually there first. Now, Esau took him and his family and moved up into that mountainous regions. Now, they eventually intermingled with the Horites because Esau's son, Eliphaz, he took on a concubine of the Horites. Now, eventually, brothers, Esau managed to displace and destroy the Horites out of that region. Okay, so now we're in the scriptures, brothers, and we're going to get the descendants of Esau. Now, I just want to focus on Eliphaz because out of the line of Eliphaz, who was the son of Esau, is where you get Amalek. So now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom, jumping down. So thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Like I said, brothers, this is their ancient dwelling place. So descendants of Esau, and these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Ada, the wife of Esau. So now jumping down to the next verse. So now the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz. So brothers, the next verse. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bore to Eliphaz Amalek. Okay, and I know brothers who read the scriptures are familiar with Amalek. Now brothers, Amalek obviously became the most prominent in Edom. And brothers, those are the people who are in rulership today. The people who own the banks, mainstream media, the public education system, record labels, corporations. Brothers, we know who they are. I'm not going to outright say because, you know, when you mention that a certain demographic owns, let's just say territories per se, they're going to call you an anti-you-know-what. So with that being said, brothers, you had the various tribes, Edomite tribes, from Esau obviously, that spread throughout Mount Seir, and they took control of the incense route in or King's Highway. Now this was a major trading route and location. But before we touch on that, let me read Deuteronomy. Now I mentioned, as I said, Esau eventually displaced the Horites. So this is Deuteronomy 2 and 12. So the Hormis also dwelt in Seir before time, but the children of Esau succeeded them when they had destroyed them from before them and dwelt in their stead. Okay, so brother, so as I said, Esau destroyed and displaced the Horites that were there. So I mentioned that Esau, or Esau I should say, controlled the incense route and the King's Highway after moving up to Mount Seir. Now there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. So what is the incense route? So the incense route refers to a historical network of trading paths primarily used to transport frankincense and myrrh from southern Arabia to the Mediterranean and Mesopotamia. This route was crucial for the exchange of not just these aromatic resins, but also other goods, cultures, and ideas between the East and the West during ancient times. So this is the territory that Edom now controlled. Now what he would do, brothers, he would set up forts and garrisons, and he would tax and toll people that were going out through these regions. He will tax traders, merchants, caravans, what have you. Now let's see how he dwelt with the children of Israel. So now we're in Numbers. Just given a time period, basically, brothers. Now the Israelites have been rescued from the land of Egypt and are now sojourning. So Numbers 20 and 14. So and Moses sent messengers from Kadesh unto the king of Edom. Thus saith thy brother Israel, thou knowest all the travail that have befallen us, how our fathers went down unto Egypt, and we have dwelt in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians vexed us and our fathers. And when we cried unto the Most High, he heard our voice, and sent an angel, and had brought us up out of Egypt. Behold, we are in Kadesh, a city in the utmost of thy border. So let us pass, I pray thee, throughout thy country. We will not pass through thy fields, or through the vineyards, neither will we drink of the water of the wells. We will go by the king's highway, like I mentioned. We will not turn to the right hand nor to the left until we have passed thy borders. So let's see how Edom responded. Keep in mind, brothers, the Israelites just wanted to pass through. And Edom said unto him, Thou shalt not pass by me, lest I come out against thee with the sword. Edom being Edom. Let's read on. And the children of Israel said unto him, We will go by the highway, and if I and my cattle drink of thy water, then I will pay for it. I will only without doing anything else go through on my feet. So here he is. So now the children of Israel are saying to the king of Edom, we will pass through, and if any of our cattle drinks any from your wells, your waters, we will pay you. Let's see how Edom responded. And he said, Thou shalt not go through. And Edom came out against him with much people and with a strong hand. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his border, wherefore Israel turned away from him. Edom being Edom. The Israelites wanted to pass through, and he threatened them with the sword. Okay, so I mentioned that going into that mid 150 AD, 200 AD period is where so-called black people gained back rulership and they were cast off. Now, them being cast off, brothers, was actually prophesied in the scriptures. Now, I brought this out in my video a while back, Byzantine icons and Black Russians video of them being cast off. Now, we're going to go over it one more time. Now, we're going to read this plainly as and interpret it how the average person would, and then we're going to get the breakdown. So Revelation 20:1. So, and they saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid open the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Now, when the average person reads that, they think that this is talking about the spiritual entity Satan, that Satan got cast off, into the hellish realm and he was bound. Brothers, this is actually talking about Edom. So let's get the breakdown. So, and they saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit. So what is that bottomless pit? Brothers, the bottomless pit is metaphorical and physical. The bottomless pit is a representation of them caves in the mountains, deep within the caverns. And it's also a representation of a people being cast off. So we get the root word. So the bottomless pit. So bottomless, unbound, the abyss, the pit, the immeasurable depth of Orcus, a very deep gulf or chasm in the lowest parts of the earth. Once again, brothers, they were cast off from amongst men. Let's read on. So having a key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand, and he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Brothers, that 1,000 years was the dark age period, okay? That's where so-called black people were in rulership and they got cast off and they delved into the state known as the wild men or the wild people. Let's read on. And cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years shall be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. Now, brothers, after that 1,000 years period was over, he re-emerged into mainland Europe, and apart from deceiving the world after he came back into power, this is where you get a lot of diseases, the diseases that were going on in Europe, especially preceding to the Black Death. Okay, brothers, the Black Death is what led to a lot of black people being wiped out of Europe. Now, when it comes to the wild man, brothers, some of you brothers and sisters are under the impression that the wild man comes from fallen angel seed. Now, this is why I had to do a video stating that the wild men, the wild people, do not come from fallen angel seed. But I understand why people may say that, because when you get the image of the wild man, it looks like a mythological creature. It truly does. So this is where you may think that it's some kind of hybrid. No, brothers. This is an actual one-to-one representation of how they looked. As I mentioned here. So brothers, this is a real photo, okay? As I mentioned at the start, this is a man named as Russian, the dog-faced boy. Oh, sorry, he's a Russian man and is known as the dog-faced boy. Now, they may say that this is an isolated incident, and this is a condition known modernly as, I think it's pronounced hypertrichosis, if I'm not mistaken. But brothers, this is what they looked like as a conglomerate of people when they were living in them caves. The wild man is not a myth. All it is, brothers and sisters, is just them being cast off from amongst men. Think about it. Think about someone like, you have a homeless person who has like bipolar and schizophrenia, and say like he moves to a mountain and he lives amongst animals, and let's say he lives a long time. How do you think that person's going to turn out? He lives amongst animals. He's going to become like the animals that he's with because he's been stricken with madness. But it's just that in their case, as I said, they have that hairy DNA. One more time, brothers, the wild man is not a mythological creature. It's not no fallen angel seed either. Okay, so like I said, I went over this in my Byzantine icons and Black Russians video. Towards the end of that video, where I talked about them being cast off. Now, there's a brother on the Discord. Now, it's been a while since I've posted anything in that Discord, but there's a brother who laid it out really nicely. Unfortunately, I don't remember which brother it was. So, brother, if you happen to be watching this video, shout yourself out and give yourself credit, because you laid it out really nicely. So brothers, this is concerning them being cast off. So the 1,000 years imprisonment, or the 1,000-year imprisonment of Esau. So we just read this. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and that he must be loosed a little season. Now, brothers and sisters, I'm not going to go over every point in this, even though every point is great, because I'm going to save it for when I talk about the wild man during the Dark Age period. You know, how he lived, how he looked, how he acted, the conditions that he was in, because I want to link this with the information on the wild man. So we're just going to get the key parts, even though all of this information is key parts. So just bear with me. I'm not going to read this whole thing just yet. So premise, Satan being imprisoned for 1,000 years in the bottomless pit represents the beast Esau being sealed. Like I said, brothers, it's not talking about the spiritual entity Satan being cast off. It's talking about Edom being cast off as a people. Now, the brother included a clip from the Planet of the Apes movie. Unfortunately, I cannot play it because of copyright issues. But when it comes to the Planet of the Apes movies, brothers, the apes are talking about us. It's showcasing us. Any of you who have seen any of the Planet of the Apes movies, it's so obvious. Because it's their fear of black rulership. It showcases how we used to rule over them, how we're going to rule over them, and it has a lot of biblical undertones to it. As I said, any of you who have seen any of the Planet of the Apes movies, it's so obvious. So Planet of the Apes, beware of the beast man, aka the wild man, the shaggy man, Esau. Now in this particular scene, he literally describes them one-to-one, where he talks about them being the beast man. But like I said, brothers, I can't play the clip because of copyright issues. So when the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, they called his name Esau. As I said, brothers, these people are synonymous with being hairy. Now we're just going to jump down. Like I said, we're going to go over all of this when I talk about the wild man during the Dark Age period. So just bear with me and have patience. So when we look at the term Seir or Seir, when it's describing Esau, it's some of the Strong's Concordance describe this word as goat, satyr, hairy, because these people are synonymous with being an hairy like people, the wild men. So hairy, he-goat. Brothers, we just read previously who was described as the rough goat, the he-goat in the scriptures. Alexander the Macedonian, right? As I said, sorry if it seems like I'm rushing through this. Like I said, brothers, I just want to briefly touch on this. Like I said, I'm going to go over all of this, but I just want to save it for when I link it with the wild men, so it's more palatable. So jumping down, so Esau is the hairy man, the goat man, the devil. Not saying that he is literally the deceiving spirit called Satan, but they worship him as their god and channel his spirit to cause confusion on the earth. Okay, so now, brothers and sisters, I'm going to leave it there now for part 2. As I said, I'm hardly done. This Wildman series is going to be one of my longest series because there's still a lot of information to get through. So I ask brothers and sisters, please have patience, okay? It takes a while to edit, gather the information, and then upload the video. And keep in mind, brothers and sisters, I do have a real life to live, and sometimes real life gets in the way of video production. It is what it is. But with that being said, brothers and sisters, for those of you who wish to financially support me on this channel through donations and tips, you can support me on my Patreon, YouTube memberships, or PayPal. With that being said, giving all praises to the Most High Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. Deuces. See you in the next one.